Welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed your time reflecting on some meaningful moments in your life and extracting value from those moments. In today's video, we'll be talking about how we make meaning in the digital era. And we're not just consuming media, we actually create meaning through it. But the pace and structure of our modern media platforms with rapid fire short form content generally blocks our ability to actually digest and integrate the meaning we're extracting from that media. And as human beings, we are meaning makers. We love to do this. We are here to create meaning of our lives. We take in information constantly. We love to tell stories and to hear good stories and to try to make sense of the world through the information that we gather. But not all media gives us the space or time to do that well. In Neil Postman's Amusing Ourselves to Death, he writes about the two different futures, the Orwellian and the Huxley. So Orwell feared a world where the truth was hidden from us. And Huxley feared a world where the truth didn't matter anymore because we were flooded in a sea of information and it was lost in that sea. And so our fast and fragmented content overwhelms our sense-making systems, and we can't integrate what we don't have time to digest. So when we think about the way that we're sometimes hooked in that seeking of a quick short-term dopamine boost, or we get scroll fatigue, or we feel like nothing makes sense anymore. That's the reduced narrative coherence from constantly consuming short form media that we're not actually able to create meaning from effectively. And if you're feeling overwhelmed these days, that is not your fault, but rather it is nearly impossible to build a meaningful life from 7-second sound bites and reels and shorts. I could go on. And so if you feel overwhelmed, you're not broken. It's just that watching short form content all day and somehow trying to make sense of that is going to cause anyone, any human being, to feel really disoriented. So to recap, we covered Neil Postman, Amusing Ourselves to Death. I really recommend that book if you're keen to learn more about this. It describes a lot about the way our desire to be amused and entertained might play out into futures that are not quite what we want for ourselves and for humanity. And another famous media theorist is Marshall McLuhan, who had this concept very famously, the medium is the message. And so the medium refers to the medium through which we receive information. So Instagram or a podcast or a long form written news article. These are all different mediums. And he describes it by saying it's not just what media says, it's what it does to us by how it's structured. So I invite you to do a little experiment here if you have a moment. And you don't have to do it right now, but at some point, begin noticing how you feel when you read something long form, let's say a book, a longer news article, compared to how you feel in your body and your mind when you watch the same amount of short form content. So spend 5 or 10 minutes reading and then spend 5 or 10 minutes watching short form content and just begin noticing how you feel. That is an illustration of the medium being the message. So the medium itself is impacting the way you receive that information. So Instagram doesn't just show you photos, it shapes how you think, what you value, and how you see yourself. TikTok trains us in performance and brevity. News cycles reward outrage and urgency. And streaming services make it harder to sit with discomfort or to be still with ourselves. And none of this is inherently wrong, right? There's nothing inherently bad about performance and brevity, or a sense of urgency sometimes is important, or we don't always want to be sitting in discomfort. However, I'm encouraging you to think about what your media habits are training your brain to expect. We do need to be mindful of how our media consumption, how the mediums we consume through are changing our brain and its expectations. So far, we've covered amusing ourselves to death and the way that short form media leads to shallow meaning making ability, which ends up leaving us feel disoriented. We've covered the medium as the message, referring to the idea that the medium of delivery itself changes the way we receive information, valuing things like performance, outrage, urgency, and using streaming to self-soothe rather than sitting in stillness or truly resting. And the last meaning-making structure I invite you to think about is the idea of technological determinism and social constructivism. So the first one is exactly what it sounds like, technological determinism, meaning our technology shapes society. The second one, social constructivism, is that our society shapes technology. So if we use Instagram as an example here, there are many people now making careers as influencers. That would not be a societally available option without the technology for it. And on the social constructivism side of that, you could say, well, what is valued in these platforms is a reflection of our societal values. And so the truth lies in the dance between the two, that our technology influences us as individuals and as a collective, but we also do have agency to shape how it shows up in our lives. For example, Instagram was designed to share photos, but it has become a place for so much more, for news, for dating, for activism, for selling things, because we made it that way. And so if we don't like the way it is, we do have agency to change that by training our algorithm what it is that is truly meaningful to us and directing our attention toward that. And this ties back to the activity we did last time of looking at real moments in our life and extracting value and real meaning from that. Because meaning isn't abstract and it won't necessarily be found in short form content and sound bites. It lives in our real experience. And our media can inspire us and connect us, but it can also numb us and distract us and leave us feeling outraged and despair. It's only when we pause to notice how it's impacting us that we can choose what role media will play in our life story. And if you look at the media, which I'm sure you are, it doesn't look like the world's going to slow down anytime soon. But you can. We can. And in that pause, we begin to reclaim our power to choose, our agency, and our ability to choose where we focus our attention and how we make our meaning. So I hope at this point you have a little more clarity around how to construct meaning through your relationship with media and through the way you direct your attention in your life.